My name is Mike Levison, and I'm the president of JNF Atlanta's Board of Directors. On behalf of our entire board, I'd like to welcome you all today and thank you for participating today. Today's event is sponsored by JNF's Real Estate for Israel initiative. Real Estate for Israel is one of a number of JNF affinity group initiatives, and it's really intended to serve as both a networking opportunity for local real estate professionals, but also to expose local real estate professionals here in Atlanta to what JNF is doing in this area to build a stronger and more prosperous Israel. If you're not already a member of Real Estate for Israel here in Atlanta, I encourage you to join. Membership does require an annual donation of at least $1,800, but it is well worth it, and the work that it supports is really very, very important. But before we jump into today's main program, we're going to start with a couple of other things. First, we're going to watch a brief video that highlights an incredibly exciting and important new initiative that's getting underway at JNF. It's the building of the World Zionist Center campus in Beersheba. This is JNF's biggest project ever, and JNF has done some big projects, so that's a real statement. And then after that, Ariel Fruckman, who's one of our local JNF professionals, she's going to provide a brief overview of JNF's community building activities in Israel, and then we'll move on to our main program. So with that, let's move to the video.
When we are doubted, we excel. When people say it can't be done, we do the impossible. When we are surrounded by hatred, we choose love. It began as a dream that one day the Jewish people will again have a home. That vision became a reality. This is Israel. This is Zionism. This is Jewish National Fund USA. It's time to write the next chapter in the Zionist story. Travel the country and you'll see it's happening. A renaissance in the desert. Coexistence in the Galilee. Synagogues, mosques, and churches. Ancient traditions in a modern land. Diversity. Inclusion. Employment. This is Israel. This is Zionism. This is Jewish National Fund USA. Zionism is starting a new community on barren desert plains. It's growing vegetables where there's no rain. It's solving environmental problems, and it's sharing our expertise with the world. Nothing is easy. Things don't always go our way. When we are attacked, we come back stronger. Whether the world is with us or against us, we remember who we are, and we teach it to our children. Whatever challenges come our way, Zionism ensures that we are never alone. When we remember that we always have each other, nothing can stand in our way. Let's build a better world together.
Good afternoon from Atlanta. I am Ariel Fruckman, Jewish National Fund's Associate Director in Atlanta. Thank you to AJ Robinson, our Event and Real Estate Division Chair, for your leadership, and to Mike Levison, Jewish National Fund's President of the Atlanta Board of Directors. Thank you to today's speakers, Ron, David, and Ethan, for lending your expertise and supporting our quest to grow our real estate division. Also, thank you to Beth Gluck, Jewish National Fund's Southeast Executive Director, for your vision and partnership. As you just heard and saw, today's Jewish National Fund continues to evolve, and we are a force to be reckoned with. We are real estate developers. We have built once barren desert and bare bones cities into bustling metropolises such as Tel Aviv and Beersheba. We are builders, identifying areas in need of housing and infrastructure and providing vital support to developing, thriving communities. We are architects constructing fortified bomb shelters that double as playgrounds and vital medical centers so children and families can live in the periphery and on Israel's borders with peace of mind, knowing safety is within reach during times of crisis. We are investors, growing, building, and creating for a brighter future. How did we get here? How did we shift from your grandparents' Jewish National Fund with push ski boxes and tree planting to the backbone of cities spanning from the Galilee to the Negev? The answer is simple. We don't do projects, we build vision, and we continue to dream big. Please consider joining our Jewish National Fund's Atlanta Real Estate Division today so we can continue to ensure a stronger, more prosperous, and secure Israel for today, tomorrow, and generations to come. Thank you. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Ariel. Seeing this JNF's community building work firsthand was really what sort of catapulted my interest in JNF and really led me to getting much more involved in JNF's work. We did a family trip to Israel a few years ago, took a tour of Beersheba, and Sharon and I had been there on our honeymoon many years ago. And at that point, it was really basically a garbage dump in the middle of the desert. There wasn't much more to it, but we rolled into town on this family trip, and it had been totally transformed. It was a thriving city with parks, lake, housing, tourist attractions, and almost all of it was due to JNF's work. And so I just found it truly amazing, and that was really the catalyst that led to me getting much more involved in the organization. Okay, well, let's move on to our main program. It's my pleasure to introduce the moderator of today's panel. In addition to being my first cousin, AJ Robinson is the longtime president and CEO of Central Atlanta Progress, which is the business organization that really focuses on making downtown Atlanta a better place to work and a better place to live. There are very few people that have had the kind of impact on downtown Atlanta that as AJ has. He's also very active in a number of other civic organizations, on the board of the Center for Civil and Human Rights, Georgia Forward, College Football Hall of Fame, and I'm sure there are a number of others. He is joined today by three other panelists. AJ will introduce them, but Cuz, over to you.
All right, thanks, Mike, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you all for being here and joining and sharing what may be for many of you your lunch hour with us. Before I introduce our panelists, let me just also personally reflect on what's been said about JNF, and from my standpoint, from someone who first went to Israel in 1967, 6 months after the Six-Day War, and have been back many, many times since. To me, JNF is kind of the ultimate organization that has remained relevant in the world of Israeli Jewish organizations for over 100 years, and has been able to transform itself into what today is, as Ariel said, Mike said, an infrastructure business of creating unbelievable projects and unbelievable support for Israel's land and its infrastructure. And as a real estate person, many of you know, you can't build real estate without great infrastructure. So I would also encourage you to stick with us in this real estate division. We're going to do some exciting programming during the year like this one, and stay with us and learn about Israel and JNF, and also learn about our own real estate community here. So thanks for being here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to briefly introduce our three panelists. We have a great breadth of experience here, but I'm going to be very brief because their bios will be in the chat as they begin, and you can hopefully reflect on their bios for what I'm going to say. When we come to the end, during presentations, please feel free to put a question into the chat if you have a question, and I will try to get to those towards the end of the program. But the panelists have a lot to say and not a whole lot of time, so we're gonna move quickly. So with that, our first panelists we're going to hear from is Ron Glass in just a moment. And Ron is a nationally recognized crisis manager, fiduciary, Chapter 11 trustee, chief restructuring officer, and a bankruptcy advisor. Ron could do this panel all by himself if we let him. You may know that he co-founded Glass Ratner, now doing business as B. Riley Advisory Services in 2001 with Ian Ratner, another good real estate guy. And I can honestly say I can't think of anybody more qualified to talk about real estate in general, and particularly retail, than Ron. And he hopefully will mention that his firm has recently introduced a new restructured real estate fund that you can invest in. And as the real estate community is changing, Ron's always looking for opportunity. After Ron, we have the pleasure of having David Burnbury, who's the chairman and co-CEO of the Shopping Center Group. And David is responsible for the overall direction of the company's tenant representation practice, marketing, and training. David's also a legend in our community and has been around real estate his whole career. The Shopping Center Group has its real pulse on retail. That's their bread and butter. And I'm sure David will bring a lot of perspective today on just where we are. And I may also add that David's been incredibly active in a leadership role in J&F, and we thank him for that. And third, and certainly not least, is our own Ethan Robinson, a recent graduate in finance and entrepreneurship from the McCombs Business School at University of Texas. Ethan did a gap year based in Israel prior to college. I've paid for extensive travel in Hong Kong, Barcelona, and various places around the world during his college days. And last summer, he had the privilege of interning with Alan Greenberg, who is the creator and founder of Illuminarium. Illuminarium opens on July 1st, and this is a new creative entertainment retail. And we thought it'd be great for you guys to get a firsthand perspective of how Illuminarium is going to enter the world in a couple of weeks and where it's going around the world. So with those brief introductions, I'm going to turn to Ron. And Ron, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, AJ, and thanks for everybody who's attending. For some known reason, am I on mute?
No, you're good.
Okay, for some known reason, I took geology when I was in college. The reason was it was an easy A, but the only thing I remember about geology was they said the past is the key to the present. So what I'm going to do is kind of go down memory lane of retail in Atlanta, Georgia, and environs. So until sometime into probably the 60s, downtown Atlanta was a retail hub of Atlanta and environs. People would drive in from Douglasville and Marietta and Decatur and Stone Mountain to shop downtown. As an analogy to a shopping mall, it was somewhat anchored to the north by Davison's, which was owned by Macy's, but back then Atlanta was a southern town. So it was Davison's of Dixie and Macy's of the north. And the retail probably went up to where the Peachtree Plaza is today. It was anchored to the south by Rich's, which was the largest and hometown grown and favorite department store. And that branched off to Broad. Peachtree continues south, and at 5 points, it became Whitehall. And Whitehall Street also had retail. The retailers that were there, many have gone away. Woolworths, Cress's, W.T. Grant, McCrory's, Muses, Parks Chambers, J.P. Allen, Baker's, Butler's, Mary Jane Shoes, and a host of others. So downtown was the epicenter of retail. Of course, there was always convenience retail. In the Jewish community, a lot of that was centered around the Virginia Highlands area, which had a couple of kosher delis and a kosher meat market. Then we kind of fast forward to 1959, and Belvedere Plaza was built, and that was at Memorial Drive and Columbia Drive, and it was anchored by Rich's department store, but it was not an enclosed mall. and it had a devastating effect on downtown Decatur. It was barely a ripple on the pond to downtown Atlanta, which continued. Then Riches continued to think that the suburbs were the place to be. And in 1963, they moved to what was known as Cobb Center Mall. And Cobb Center Mall was Woolworth, a supermarket chain, cafeteria, but again, a not enclosed mall. And many of the Jewish merchants, including some of my family members, Saul's, moved into Cobb Center, as well as stayed in downtown Marietta. And again, downtown Marietta retail was negatively impacted. At one time, one of my employers owned Cobb Center. I'm pleased to report I sold it for a good profit in the early 1980s. And then the center was ultimately enclosed. Today, the center is totally vacant, except for the Riches store, which they're trying to make into some kind of a continuing education center. The causation of the demise of Cobb Center was Cumberland Mall. And Cumberland Mall had 4 anchors: Riches, Macy's, Penny's, and Sears. And with the merger, when Federated took over Riches, Macy's moved into the Riches store. The Riches store was demolished and an atrium was built, which allowed for some additional retail. Over the years, of course, Penny's closed, was torn down, and a Costco was built, but is not part of the mall. It's on the property. And then in most recent times, Sears closed. So that is a 1 anchor mall. And again, part of the causation there was a larger mall called Town Center Mall. And Town Center Mall, similarly, was Macy's, Riches, Mervyn's, and Parisians took over the Mervyn space. And to let you know where Town Center Mall sits today, the lender was the only bidder at the foreclosure on the courthouse steps and bid it in for $130,400,000. Looking at other submarkets, we have North DeKalb Mall, which was blowing and going until North Lake hit it. North Lake Mall was then hit by the Mall of Georgia and Gwinnett Place Mall. Gwinnett Place Mall now is basically vacant. North DeKalb Mall is totally vacant except for some strip space. On the other hand, brick and mortar retail is far from dead. I have photographs, because you can see it, of our Atlanta office, of the Lenox Square parking lot during COVID on a Saturday or Sunday, and you'd think it was Black Friday. Phipps similarly situated, and those we call fortress malls and adaptable malls, and that Phipps, tore down what was Parisian and then Belk. And I don't know what the status is now, but when Lenox was built, Riches owned their own pad. Wouldn't you love to own that pad? Let your mind wander. Could that be a hotel? Could it be multifamily? Could it be an office building? Because you have cross easements and parking from the mall. So I don't think those malls are going away, but they're going to have to reinvent themselves with some other entertainment concepts, which I'll, kudos to Luminarian. Those types of concepts are going to continue. Also, which all of we know as professionals, there are various and sundry types of retail. There's super regionals, regional malls, power centers, grocery anchored shopping centers, convenience centers, specialty centers, and all are unique. So again, in our area, we've seen, by example, Broadview Plaza, which is now known as Lindbergh Plaza. There's not a single tenant in there that was a tenant there the day it was built. It was originally a 2-floor Kmart that's long gone. All the other tenants are gone, but it's very successful, partly because of MARTA and gentrification. And for those of you who live in Sandy Springs, you cannot name the number of tenants who have come and gone from Sandy Springs Plaza that are still going. We believe in bricks and mortar retail. We've put our money where our mouth is. We're doing a $50 million fund to acquire smaller retail. I have my own money in it. And David Burnbury can really give you an update on what is happening today. Those tenants that were strong have recovered or recovering from COVID. Those that were weak, Penny's was going away with or without COVID. So I've taken up my 6 minutes, I think, and I'll turn it over to AJ.
Ron, that's a great overview. Gets us off to a great start. Let me ask you one quick question, because you covered a lot of territory there. But in your fund, as you look at Atlanta for investment in retail, what are the fundamentals that you would look for in Atlanta market? Because you really date a lot of Atlanta property. There's so much going on in urban Atlanta. But where are you looking for the return?
Again, we're looking for opportunities, AJ, but this is saying nothing but saying a lot. A very wise shopping center person who's was a mentor to me said, a shopping center is like baking a cake. If you leave out one ingredient, you're not going to get what you had hoped for. So if you leave out the yeast and bread, you're going to get matzah, I guess. I don't know. And matzah is a lot different than bread. And the same thing with that. If you leave out, baking soda, your thing's not going to rise. So each is unique, and you have to have the right tenant mix, the right parking mix, the right visibility, ingress and egress. And again, convenience retail, we believe, is here to stay. And so that's the best answer I can give you.
All right, David, we're going to turn to you. You've got a great introduction there. What trends are you seeing in Atlanta or across the country? You're everywhere. What do you think as we come out of COVID is for retail?
Well, it's interesting that Ron brought up the history of retail, because I'm a big believer in you need to completely understand the history of retail in order to understand what is going to likely happen in the future, because history totally does repeat itself. I actually give a speech on the history of retail that I go back to the cavemen that used to trade 3 rocks for a cave, and that's where retail actually started. But if you take it up to about the turn of the 20th century, around 1900s, most of retail in the United States, everyone, 90% of the people in the United States around 1900 lived in rural communities, and retail was traditionally based around the general store. And the interesting thing about the general store was that it was a seller-dominated market, because there was no competition. People came from short distances, they rode horses, and they came to the general store, and that's where they had to shop. And I think the interesting thing about what has transpired from 1900 to today is the fact that consumers now have, they basically run the game now. It's up to consumers where they shop, how they shop, and it's up to manufacturers to get product in the hands of consumers. So the whole thing has changed. The whole dynamics has changed. But the interesting thing is everything old is happening again. We look at e-commerce and we look at it as if it's a recent thing, and it is a very recent thing. As a matter of fact, the iPhone started in 2007, believe it or not. It's only 14 years old, and the iPhone changed. The only thing that it changed about shopping was every single thing. But prior to the iPhone, long before that, the death of the general store was actually brought about by a concept called rural free delivery, which allowed the Sears catalog to get in the hands of the farmers, and it allowed products to be delivered to the farms and to the people on the farms free of charge. So that was the death of the general store, and that was the beginning of e-commerce. And then e-commerce transformed itself in the late 50s with the advent of Best Products out of Richmond, Virginia, and Elman's, as the people in Atlanta would know, which was acquired by Service Merchandise, which was one of the first examples of e-commerce. So, you think that e-commerce is a new thing, but e-commerce actually dates back to theoretically or possibly to the Sears catalog, and then more recently to the warehouse showrooms like Service Merchandise and Best Products and Elman's. We're studying where retail is going right now because it's the critical element to today. If you looked at 20 years ago, the barometer for how a retailer is doing was same store sales. So what they did is they determined exactly, if I was the Lenox Square Best Buy store and I sold, making this up, $3 million worth of product in January of 21, and I sold $2.5 million worth of product in January of 20, then that's how much the store went up, and that was the barometer to determine how retail was doing. Now, retail is judged by a concept called customer acquisition cost, which is how much money is it going to cost me to get this pair of Nike Air Jordans in the hand of a consumer in Douglasville, Georgia. It doesn't matter how it's done. It doesn't matter if the platform is e-commerce. It doesn't matter if the platform is pick up in store, order online. And it doesn't matter if the product is sold in stores and people go back and do the historical way of the way they shop. The interesting thing that COVID has taught us is that the only thing that matters is getting products in the hands of consumers. And even the people like me who thought it was a travesty, it was heresy for me to shop online because I'm a bricks and mortar guy, I changed. And I would say that COVID changed the way everything did. It changed the way municipalities look at their rules. It changes, you look at shopping centers today and the focus is on the lane right in front of the stores. If you look at shopping centers and how they'll be over the next 2 to 3 to 5 to 10 years, it'll be all about how you can easily drive your car up to the store, park, and bring product out that you didn't shop for. You shop for online, not in the store. It'll be delivering. It'll be group delivering with companies that are taking Uber-like approaches to people that just say, I'm going to Mableton, Georgia, and they're hooking up a consumer in Mableton with a retailer near that person's office so that person can deliver product on his way home. And, we're looking at our environment right now has changed dramatically. I think it's changed in every way, shape, and form. But I'm actually very bullish about our future because I believe that bricks and mortar retail is necessary to the ultimate putting a product in the hands of consumers, no matter how you look at it. And I'm actually very bullish. The interesting thing about malls, Ron, is I think that one of the things that affected malls, the first thing that affected malls is the death of the department stores. And I think the concept of the death of department stores is a misnomer because people think the JCPenney's and Rich's and Macy's and Sears Rich's, Macy's, and Penny's were department stores. But at the end of their time, they were really just very, very large apparel stores. And the last department store was Sears. Sears was the last one that actually had departments of toys and sporting goods and all these things. But I think the death of the malls is going to be more because of the functional obsolescence of the development and the way they were built than it will be about the tenants. Because the days of a barbell construction with 2 department stores at the end and a barbell in the middle, which means that 40% of your retail is going to be on the other side facing backwards, it's functionally obsolete. It doesn't work. What people are looking for is in-your-face retail that stimulates a customer that motivates a customer to buy things on impulse because it's in-your-face retail. And that's the exact opposite of the development and the concept of a barbell-shaped mall. I don't know where I'm going with any of this stuff. I always ramble, but I do believe that if you look back and if you think that anything that you're seeing today is a phenomena, it's not. It happened before. And I think it's going to be a cool time for the consumer. I really do. I think the next 10 years are going to be the best time to ever be a consumer. You have price, you have selection, you have variety, and you have convenience. And convenience is the ultimate goal of retail in every shape and form. Anyway, that's it.
All right, David, that's fascinating.
I got nothing more.
No, you got a few months. You got a few minutes here. You mentioned lots of things there, and I'm curious if, as you look at Atlanta and the changes in Atlanta that have occurred in your lifetime, are there particular things that your tenants, convenience being number one, but what is it that your tenants, in terms of looking at Atlanta, are they are they credit-worthy tenants that want to go into an existing space that may be free because of issues of COVID? Are they urban folks who want to get into the urban game? I mean, I know you represent a lot of different people. So is there anything in particular besides convenience that people, as you look at Atlanta, are looking at it? Is it concentration of mall space? Is it other places?
I think it's really the creation of a hub and spoke. And the hub is typically the distribution center. If you're looking at pure play retail, and Amazon is a pure play retailer, if you think about it. And what they did is they developed a concept of hub and spoke. The hub is the 1.2 million square foot distribution center that is the base of everything, that is its home plate. And then the retail stores like Whole Foods and like the Amazon Fresh and Amazon To Go will be built around that. And each one of these retail stores will have their own type of distribution coming out of them as well. And this is going to create a lot of problems for developers because it goes against the grain of the way developments were developed. For instance, percentage rent will be a thing of the past because people will not be able to determine where the sale was actually made. Like, where is the sale made if you walk into a store and you've got your iPhone and you look at a TV and then you showroom it by taking your iPhone, putting in that product code, the SKU, and taking that number and shopping it throughout the world. And then eventually you find out that while you're in Best Buy, you just bought a Samsung TV from Conn's in Mapleton, Georgia, or in Lincoln, Nebraska. It could be anything. So I think that it will be very difficult to determine the success of the actual brick and mortar retail and whether or not it was the stimulus for the purchase. And I have no idea if that just answered your question, but I will tell you that we're in an age where people are looking for experiences. I think Illuminarium is an amazing concept. It was patterned after a number of other things like Meow Wolf and other concepts that are all over the United States that are immersive entertainment venues, and immersive being you're a part of it. And I'm sorry, Ethan, I'm not going to steal your thunder here, so I'll shut up about that. I think you're going to see a great deal of entertainment. I think that you're going to see the design of shopping centers changing dramatically because shopping centers, again, will be pickup, delivery, buy online, pick up in store, all kinds of different things. I also think I mentioned the municipalities have relaxed their rules, and I think you're going to see open container laws that are relaxed, where you're allowed to shop with a beer in your hand or a drink in your hand. I've been doing it for years, but it was under my shirt. And I think you're going to see a lot of changes and stuff. And by the way, the thing that's amazing is that we knew about e-commerce, and e-commerce was the huge change. That was the cataclysmic change that allowed us to survive during COVID. But the world is about to change with autonomous cars, and that's going to change the way everybody does everything. Your cars are going to be shopping for you while you're sleeping. It's going to change the what used to be the stay-at-home elderly population is now going to be part of the shopping population. So there's a lot of great things on the horizon that are going to change things dramatically.
All right, you heard it here, right here first, by Mr. Burnbury. All right, Ethan, with that introduction, and being a post-millennial here, why don't you tell us the excitement of what Illuminarium is and how it approaches the retail world?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me, and I'm happy to be here. Unlike the three legends who just spoke, I haven't earned my own office, so sorry if it gets a little loud. I also wanted to shout out my 93-year-old great uncle, Jarvin Levison, who's here and knows how to do Zoom and always wants to learn more, so happy to be here. Ben, you want to share my slide deck? Awesome. So going off of that, Illuminarium is just based on what consumers want. They want to experience. They want to go out and buy stuff, but they want to be a part of that experiential economy. So this goes in line with that. Next slide. So it's a space unlike anything else. It can teleport you to any other space, any place imaginable. It's just with technology, you can transport and feel like you're in any other space. So it's an immersive experience. It makes you feel like you are there. Through different technologies, it really encapsulates what being in a different territory, a different place. It can transport you anywhere. It can make you feel like you're in a make-believe place. Anything imaginable you can make happen with the technology we have here at Illuminarium. So this is a picture, real picture of someone in space that we created. Basically what Illuminarium is, and you can go to the next slide, is it's a experiential place. So through projections on all the walls around you, it takes you to a different dimension. So this is a layout of what the space is looking like. It's going to open on July 1st here on the Beltline. So you come in through the outdoor dining and ticketing and lobby. We have a cafe with very catered and themed meals based on what kind of spectacle is happening. Our first one is Wild, the virtual safari. So we're going to have a South African braai. We're going to have different Kenyan biltong. So different kinds of foods offered there. And then you're going to go into Luminarium 1, which is the opening, which is kind of orient you into what you're about to see. And everything is projected on the walls. So you don't have to wear those VR goggles or anything. And then you're going to go into Luminarium 2, which is just takes you to a different dimension. And as you can see in my Zoom background, this is in the Luminarium 2. It's kids in front of the African safari. And then we have a retail space, and then where I am in the support office area. So our first spectacle is Wild, the virtual safari. We actually went to Tanzania, South Africa, and Kenya to film these animals, and you're going to see animals how they're meant to be seen in their natural habitat. And we're bringing the safari to you guys here in Atlanta. And the whole idea is that the majority of people in the world don't have the money to travel to go see a safari or go see the Northern Lights or go to the Great Barrier Reef. So we can bring that experience to you. Next slide. This is a picture of some family members in front of some zebras that were shot in Kruger National Park in South Africa. Next slide. So then we can cater the retail to what you're going to be experiencing in the actual Luminarium. So here's some wild merchandise, and we have some jewelry and other handmade crafts made in Africa. And part of the sales goes back to these locals and allows them to be entrepreneurs of their own and help support their families. So this is a layout of what the space is actually going to look like and some of the technology that goes into it. You're going to walk in, and Illuminarium is different than Meow Wolf or Atelier de Luminaires because it really is stimulating all your senses. So the floor vibrates in coordination with the audio. There's a scent component, so it's going to make you smell not like elephant dung, but like you're in actual Africa on a safari, like grass, like you're underwater, like you're in space. We have top line technology that allows these projections to make it feel like you're real life. So you're standing up next to a 25-foot elephant and it makes you feel like you're there. It really captures that kind of Instagrammable, take a picture and then experience something. And then we have 3D audio beaming. So in any 2 feet, you can be hearing something completely different than the person next to you. And that's just unique technology that only Illuminarium has to offer. So now I have a couple videos that kind of highlight this technology. So the floor vibrates in coordination with the audio. So as an elephant walks by, the floor becomes more intense and kind of vibrate, not as scary intense, but it just vibrates in coordination to make you feel like the elephant is right next to you. Immersive sound. So this beaming technology, it caters to every individual experience. So it gives everyone their own kind of unique sound system and hearing what they're saying. And it also lends well to events we have at Illuminarium, as we can hook up microphone and anyone can speak about what needs to be said. And then interactivity. So the floor kind of reacts to your steps. So moon dust from the floor kind of comes up, or on a safari, ants kind of scatter. So it really makes you feel like you're making an impact in the actual space you are. Like I said, the projectors are really awesome, and the scent component really makes you feel like you're somewhere that you're not. As anything on the Beltline can see, this is a new experience, and it's new and unique. And then we plan on opening. So next slide. So Atlanta's the first Illuminarium experiences and the headquarters of what you're going to be seeing. But then if you go to the next slide, we have plans on opening in Miami and Las Vegas in 2022. With now we're looking at what other cities we can kind of partner in and major tourist cities we can go to, because Illuminarium really caters to any kind of mega tourist city or mega city, with people there that want to experience and want that kind of experiential kind of retail space, as they've said. So after Wild, we have plans on doing the spacewalk and then Aquarius. But really, the coolest and most unique part is once the technology is developed and the space is developed, you can really flip through any content, which lends itself well to events and parties and celebrations. So if you want to have a bar mitzvah or any kind of celebration, you can cater to your exact needs and put your kind of content on the walls. And at night, it's going to turn into a bar on Thursday, Friday, Saturdays here in Atlanta. So you can drink on the moon or have a martini on Mars. So it really is a new, unique experience. And it's the future of retail. We're going to go ahead and end it there because I know we're cutting it close on timing.
Okay, very good, Ethan. That's a great snapshot. And for those of you who here in Atlanta, it's, you know where Two Urban Licks is, it's literally right next to Two Urban Licks on the Beltline. Fantastic location. So Ethan, I got your one question. What is critical in terms of, this is entertainment retail, in terms of the different markets for that? How are you guys positioning this? Is obviously families, tourists. What demographic are you trying to achieve here?
Yeah, so that's what's unique about Illuminarium. It really does cater to any demographic. A kid can go up there and have a really awesome time playing with the animals, or you can have a party there, go get drinks there. And then someone who's never been on a safari and kind of wants to seek out that new experience, they can come there. It is ADA accessible, so a wheelchair, anyone with any disabilities is able to come into the space. So it is not age restrictive. Anyone can come. And it lends itself well to events and groups and birthday parties and private events, because it is really customizable and you can really create your own experience in the space. And we started selling tickets a few weeks ago, and you can go online and buy tickets now.
Good plug. All right, guys, I don't see a whole lot of questions here. I guess we stunned them with our presentation. But I'm going to ask one of all of you and maybe answer the same question, and then we'll wrap it up. So underlying all these trends is a general change in technology, and David mentioned the iPhone. So Ron, back to you first. In terms of technology in retail, is there anything particular that you feel like is going to change? David mentioned a couple of things, but in terms of how it's going to affect what you as an investor or you as a workout artist or anything, is technology, where does technology fit into the retail game?
Everywhere. I mean, when my father had a shoe store on Peachtree, he had a cash register. Now they have a front end system. Costco knows everything they sell, to who they sell it to, and at what hour of the day they sold it. That's part of technology. The other is certainly online, that allows you to price shop, but some people still want to touch and feel, so that it may be that some retail becomes a showroom more than retail, which will be a reduction in space for some big box users and maybe department stores. and that's part of technology. The flip side of that is A, which I said in another venue, considering that for months and months and months, most non-essential retail was totally shut down. Amazon did not have the growth one would have expected. And still, online retail is a very small percentage of the retail dollar that is spent. Will it grow over time? Probably, yes. And then the other, which is just a catchphrase, not everything can be shipped in a box. So that's why Amazon bought Whole Foods, I suspect. So they're still going to profit. But as I say, I think bricks and mortar retail is here to stay. It's going to be in a different form. And again, what David said about malls, I don't know what Phipps Plaza has been reinvented and grown, and now they've torn down an anchor. I don't know what's going to happen to the retailers on the non-retail wing with no anchor. So we're going to see a lot of change, and technology is going to cause it, and also supply chain. So Home Depot, our homegrown favorite, it's got to get better at getting you the product you order online. To order something online that says you can pick it up in the store in 3 days, that's not going to get it. But those who can have a good supply chain, and then the other is, I think a lot of the retailers will have you return items in the store, even if it's a smaller store. So then they get you into the store, and once you're there, maybe we'll look around. Once I'm in Nordstrom's to return this item that didn't fit quite right, I may mill around for a while and find something else. So retail is far from dead, is going to change. And I think back from going to David, I thought I was the oldest one in the room till David remembered the general store and the Sears catalog. But it is evolving, and it has always been evolving, and we will be a part of this evolution, and it's exciting. And developers are going to have to change their outlook, but I'm very bullish.
Wonderful. All right, guys, I'm getting the hook sign. So let me just thank all of you. Fantastic panel. I learned a lot. I know our participants learned a lot. I'm very grateful for all of you guys being here. And I'm going to turn it back to Mike, I believe.
Thanks, AJ. And thanks to Ron, David, and Ethan as well. Do we have any final questions before we wrap this up? It doesn't look like it. Well, again, thank you for participating today. And just one more reminder, if you're not already a member of Atlanta's Real Estate for Israel chapter, please seriously consider it. And with that, we're a wrap.
כל החיים קיבלתי על מגש עשוי זהב, אנשים טובים סביבי רק שהלב לא יכאב, בעיניים עצומות הלכתי לי רק בדרכי, אמא אמרה לי יא בינתי אל תשתני, כל החיים טיילתי